Hello and welcome to the Camp Okema podcast, episode 7. Before we begin, we would just like to send out our prayers and love to Katrin Sinclair and her friend Charlie. We haven't recorded since the news broke of this almost a month ago now, but they were in Las Vegas when they were crossing a crosswalk and they were struck by a vehicle. They were both hospitalized because of that. Just a very heartbreaking and scary situation. I know since then, there was a GoFundMe that went up for the two of them. It's raised a little over $91,000. So thank you to anyone that donated. I tried to quickly go through and look at all the names. There was over 20 names that I recognized from Camp Okema. So if you donated, you're one of those names. There was lots of anonymous names. Thank you so much for doing that. And to anyone who's interested in still donating or supporting Katrin, Charlie, and their families, there is a fundraising event on Thursday, June 12th. I believe it's in Prince Albert. There is a Facebook flyer going around. I'm sure you can find it. I will post a link to that in our episode description. Once again, that fundraising event is on Thursday, June 12th. You can buy a ticket to attend. There's entertainment all night and a silent auction, cash bar. So if you're able to attend and would like to support Katrin, Charlie, and their families on their long road to recovery, that would be amazing. Once again, nothing but love, respect, and well wishes to Katrin, her siblings, her mom, Roberta, everyone in their family who I've got to meet, and we've all got to meet personally through the camp. We sincerely hope everybody is doing well, and we wish you well, Katrin, on your recovery. I know that you listen to this from time to time, so shout out. Hopefully we get to have you on. And with that, episode 7, Camp Okema podcast. My name is Jesse. I'm here with my two co-hosts, the pride of Turtleford, Saskatchewan, the best hair on the pod, Landon Nelson. How are you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. How are you, Jesse? I'm doing good.
Right on. I'm locked in. Also joining us, the pride of Caronport, Saskatchewan. Where? Caronport, Saskatchewan, folks. The most famous married man on Okema property, Caleb Scholes. What's up, my friend?
Not a whole lot. I'm doing good. I think I fully am recovered now from roofing Cook's Nook on work weekend, and I wasn't even there the full time. So shout out to the boys for finishing that off after I headed out. But I'm getting too old for that. But it was felt good to help out with that. But the Cavs were not happy. I'll tell you that much.
I believe it, folks. We were just at work weekend, or a couple of us were at work weekend. That is no shots fired at Landon. Just, he's been in other ones, so just lay off my guy, okay? But please. Caleb and I managed to get up there. Yeah, please. And that was this past weekend. We did film a handful of interviews with folks that attended. That video is definitely up. You can definitely watch that. There are quite a few laughs, in my opinion. Caleb, did we have fun?
It was so fun. It was awesome. I mean, it was so fun getting to talk to old kids one-on-one, and I know sharing a lot of the questions that we actually have here on the podcast and hearing their answers to those. It was just a great time overall, and we got quite the range of replies, and I believe Landon got brought up just a handful of times in those videos, so I'm looking forward to rewatching those and reliving some of those interviews.
I'm with you. The vibe was just fantastic. Well over 30 people that attended throughout the weekend. From my understanding, they never got the rain. So thank you to anyone that attended. Thank you to the organizers on the board of directors that got the ball rolling and so many projects taken care of. Yeah, it took me a couple of days to not feel sore from raking and shoveling and lifting the bin of leaves over top of my head many times. So thank you to anybody that was there. And thank you if you watched the video. Landon, when's the last time you were at work weekend?
I'm lacking. I think it's gone on 2 years now since I've been up there. But life gets busy. I don't know. I got put to work too hard. I think the one year I got scared off.
Yeah, that can happen. Like if you show up and just have a bad time and put in like 2 12-hour days.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, no, I really want to get out this year, but unfortunately I just had something come up on the weekend and I couldn't make it out. But it looked like there was a good crew there. And yeah, I was kind of mad I didn't make it because it seemed like a really good time.
Yeah, I mean, you could have been on that roof with Caleb and Grant and AJ and Caden, I think. And yeah, you would have just fit right in.
Yeah, I taught Grant and AJ all they know about roofing, so
Yeah, I'm sure.
if it leaks, it's not on me though. I didn't teach him that if it leaks. So.
Well, Daryl taught Caleb everything he knows about roofing. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And yeah, I was going to say, actually, shout out to Daryl because I know we interviewed him as a part of one of those interview segments. And he had said he had been up to like 15 work weekends and that he'd been doing it for decades. And I know a fun fact about that I don't know if you two guys or anyone else knows about, but his wedding anniversary is every work weekend. It's May long. And instead of hanging out at home and doing something fun, he's up there at work weekend for the past 15 years. So I know he says he goes up because there's always lots to do, but I know he does it for the love of the camp, the love of the kids, and just to help out everyone. So shout out to him. And I guess shout out to Bronwyn as well for letting him go every year and kind of getting the house to herself. But I know the work and the organization he puts in every year, the camp really benefits from that. So shout out to Daryl.
Yeah. Wow. Bronwyn. Enormous shout out to Bronwyn McRae. I did not know that. So pretty funny. Keith, Marilyn, Sarah, Sam, Andy. There was quite a few board members there. Thank you, everyone that was involved and got the camp in ship shape, ready to go. Believe it or not, there's going to be retreats there in just a couple of weeks and then the full summer slate before you know it. So that's pretty exciting. Guys, we're going to circle back to episode 1 where we talked about the history of the camp, or we tried to. You know, we laid out what we could find on the website and we did our best, right? Like we tried.
Oh yeah, that was, I mean, we were fresh off the bat starting with our first ever episode as well as trying to give a rundown of the history of camp. So, I mean, I think we had a lot of things we were juggling, but yeah, this document that you sent out, I mean, you can talk a little bit more about it if you want, Jesse, but really interesting.
Yeah, so we need to send thank you to Sarah Albers. She listened to the first episode, sent me a detailed email, including a doc with answers to a lot of our questions. Today, we're going to touch on this doc written by a gentleman named Ted Morton. Ted Morton has since passed away, so thank you, Ted, and his family for everything they contributed to Camp Okema. And thankfully, Ted took some time to write down some memories that he had of Camp Okema. If you're really interested in reading it, shoot us a message. I can share the doc with you. It's a few pages long, but we're circled in on a couple key points to touch on today. First story that Ted recalls is his first trip to Camp Okema. And he touches on Manor House, and he also gets down to Sleepy Hollow. He speaks to someone there at the camp that tells him that Sleepy Hollow was built in 1928 from logs taken from the area now used as a playground. Okay, so a couple things there. 1928. Holy cannoli. That's 97 years ago, boys.
That's a long time. What I was curious about for that, like, as far as the logs went, were those, like, was that a treed area where the playground was? Like, were they cutting those trees down or was it already cleared away for some of the buildings?
Based on the writing here, from logs taken from the area now used as the playground. So this playground is now gone and has been replaced with a new playground, but that area is still the same and it's behind Manor House, directly behind. The way I'm reading it is that those were trees that were in that spot that they cut down. Is that how you're interpreting that as well?
Yeah, I was just wondering because that's really interesting to think about because we're so used to Okema having that open space and having it be the bowl shape, just to think of massive trees just sprouted up in the middle. Like the amount of prep work that it would have taken to clear out that main area if it was all treed. Like that's unbelievable. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, like those are big logs that Sleepy Hollow was made out of. And yeah, like I can't imagine there's just a pile of logs sitting there in the middle. So I don't. Yeah, it must have been just a bunch of big trees there. Pretty wild.
You'd have to think, yeah, and it kind of 97 years. I'm not sure how many people recall the state of those logs in like the last decade, but they were not great. So they were showing their age, we'll say. 1928, that just, oh my goodness, that's a long time ago. That makes me think that, oh my goodness, the fireplace.
Yeah.
Can we assume that was that old? What do you think?
I mean, it was kind of hard to tell if it was an addition afterwards. It very well could have been, but I mean, at the rate they were going and the amount of product they were able to pump out back then, I would be shocked if they did have that fireplace in. But I almost would assume like it'd be easier to have it in first and then build kind of onto it, around it, than to take out a chunk of Sleepy Hollow and insert that fireplace afterwards. But yeah, that would be really interesting to find out because it doesn't mention that in the document.
That's gotta be an old fireplace. I mean, that thing looked old. I'm not sure how.
Do you think that they
I'm
built
not a
like,
big fireplace expert. I don't know how it goes building them, but
well,
I'm
homework for next
assuming
time?
it's the same age. I don't.
You're going to be on
Like, they
YouTube
had to-
after this episode looking up tutorials to figuring out how to install fireplaces.
How to build a brick fireplace? Yeah.
Brother, that wasn't brick. That was like stone. Was it not just big stones?
Potato.
Moving on. Another passage from Ted's memories here. Memories. Oh my goodness. The trail led past the Manor House, which had been built with a grant from the Federal Winter Works Program. It was used at this time as a recreation and dining hall. Some years later, it had received a great deal of kitchen when Emmanuel College at the University of Saskatchewan had quit offering board and room to students, including the walk-in fridge, a large stove, and many pots and pans and smaller equipment. So this first year, he doesn't have what year this is of his first trip out to Camp Okema, but I think it's in the 70s based on what I'm going to read later, foreshadowing. And it already has the walk-in fridge. That feels crazy. That is much older than I would have assumed the walk-in fridge was in there. Recreation and dining hall. It doesn't mention washrooms. It doesn't mention the dish pit. Like, I mean, questions we will still have to get answered. Lumpy, I'll pass it to you first. What are you feeling about this?
I don't know. I think you're like, maybe I just some old parents, but like the 70s doesn't seem that long ago to me. I don't know. Like I think they were modernized by that time. A walk-in fridge isn't too hard to believe, I feel like. I mean, it does look newer. Maybe we just keep good care of it, but I don't know.
The 70s weren't that long ago.
Wow. I'm trying to make the older listeners feel good right now, Jesse.
Hey, I just
Trying to make you feel good too.
Oh, okay. Caleb, what do you got?
I mean, when you were reading it, actually the part that stuck out to me was the Federal Winter Works Program, because it said they applied or they had built it with that grant. Now, I assume that grant is no longer a thing, but it's kind of strange to think about grants way back when, like we don't have the year, but even if it was the 70s, because I always viewed grants or getting money for these projects as a more modern thing. But it's interesting that they had those back then. And I wonder if it was either as competitive or what the financial situation was. Like, was it fully funded using that? Because that would have been a lot of money back then to get that fully finished with that grant, or was it a partial grant? I never did more investigation into it, but I found that was really interesting. That's how they ended up getting that.
I'm with you on that. Okay, guys, moving on. I'm going to actually continue to go backwards in the document. Ted recalls the first time they drove up. We drove in from the corner down a rutted, twisting trail through the forest, which led to the cabin lots, and took the branch off to the campsite just past the stone fireplace in the cabin used in the early days by a couple as a tuck shop. The cabin had burned, a roof built, and used for wiener roasts in the evenings. So this has to be the little hut with the fireplace sitting out there on the way to the ball diamond, right? What else could it be?
Yeah, I assume so. And just right off the top of my head, I may be imagining it wrong, but was that built in the same style as the Sleepy Hollow fireplace? Like, wasn't it just stones kind of put together underneath that lean-to? Like I realized that it maybe eroded over the years, and it probably looked a lot different in today's world than it did back then. But was it built in the same style? Because that may give a little bit more evidence to maybe when the Sleepy Hollow fireplace was built.
That's a great question. For our viewers on YouTube, I have access to images of both of those fireplaces, which are now in view. So you can have a closer look and decide for yourself. Maybe we'll circle back to that on a episode in the future. Just the mention, the fireplace in the cabin used in the early days by a couple as a tuck shop. Now just pause. Someone once told me that was an old trading post, and I always kind of leaned towards believing that, if I'm being honest with you guys. This doesn't give me any clarity on that. But I think it's interesting that it is the first mention of the tuck shop. And if I'm saying 70s and it's saying used in the early days by a couple as a tuck shop, it stands to reason that tuck was happening in the camp 70s or earlier. And it at one time did happen technically on camp property. And if you guys remember from the Maryland episode, the whole team was walking over to Ferns. So we're going to have to circle back into the bottom of that one.
I'm just kind of thinking, like, were they having hot dogs? Their duck? That'd be kind of cool.
That's not the worst idea.
Yeah, it's like they had a fireplace in there. Get some s'mores. Game changer. Let's bring it back.
Honestly, having a roast of some kind out there or an event out there would be cool. It's just sitting there. People just walk through it mindlessly, like it's not even there all the time, you know?
I mean, kind of three things. First thing, like Landon said, it'd be pretty cool to have hot dogs during tuck. And I'm sure me and you, Jesse, do remember NASCAR Day. We had talked about having a drive-through set up where kids could get like popcorn and burgers and stuff. Which
Oh,
I
that
think we
would have
could
been
still bring
so
that
sick.
back. Oh yeah, it would have been so sick. Yeah. Second thing, kind of on those same lines, what did tuck look like back then? Because what year range are we in right now? Did we say 70s?
Let's loosely say 60s and 70s.
60s and 70s. So I wonder, like, what kind of candy did they have back then? Was it just a bunch of like milkshakes, malts? I don't know what they ate back then. So that would have been interesting to see. I mean, they probably did have like Big Cats candy, stuff like that. Maybe I need to go bug some people. But the third thing that I found interesting was that they used it for wiener roasts in the evening. And I just thought it kind of comical, depending how many people you had at camp. If you had like 60 or 70 people around that one fire pit trying to roast hot dogs, makes me thankful for the campfire down on the beach. But I just thought it was kind of funny to bring the whole camp out to that little shed and all be fighting for heat space for those hot dogs. But cool nonetheless, because I was with you, Jesse. I had heard that it was a trading post, and I had no reason to oppose that.
Just to touch on two of those things, the candy, I wonder if in those days they did a lot of baking at Mana and handed that out as tuck. Just a thought that crossed my mind.
Some cinnamon buns at tuck time. Oh,
I mean, a homemade cinnamon bun would be just unreal. Thing that you mentioned for number 3, Caleb, based on what we've read and what people have told us, camps were much larger in those days.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it was as big as like the 80s, some of the records I've seen for the 80s. But yeah, even if there was like 50 people trying to get in there to roast a wiener, that is like 45 too many for how small that space is.
Yeah, you'd be sitting on people's shoulders. Like it would, yeah, would have been nuts.
Absolutely.
Do you think it was a touch up back when back when it's a trade post? Like, do you think fur traders are going up there with like 2 cents trying to
Yeah.
or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah. No, they're picking between what flavor Doritos they want and if they want a Coke or a ginger ale. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense in my brain too. Hopefully they had sweet chili heat. Moving on. So this is on pages 2 and 3 of Ted's document, Camp Okema, Building the Log Cabins. So we had asked about this openly on episode 1. In the early 80s, Camp Okema was thriving. Summer camps were filled. Spring cleaning camps brought out 70 or 80 workers. That's 2 times what we just had this past weekend, if not more. Almost 3 times some years. Pretty cool. The shrubs and various small trees were cleared in what is now the open playground, and around the 3 staff cabins were cleared, piled, and burned. Funds were found for a water system that was installed in the manor house. A well dug close to the lake shore. Work to replace the green sleeper cabin had begun. 1 frame sleeper cabin and the office building were already in use. Lots to digest in this first little bit here. Anything jump out at you guys? Whoever would like to go.
I mean, obviously, the first thing that pops out to me that you already highlighted 70 or 80 workers. And then right after that, it said the work they were doing, which was the shrubs and various small trees were cleared. And I guess you had a first-hand experience since last weekend, Jesse, just raking the leaves. But I can't imagine like pulling shrubs, cutting trees, pulling roots, and like clearing the actual space. Like, you would need, I realized that they had all those workers, but I can't imagine they had like tons of chainsaws or like trucks with ropes, or right? Like, I feel like so much of that just would have been a lot of hand labor, which is pretty wild to think about. Also very cool because I feel like that's the kind of work, especially where you can visually see that progress happening like year after year, to be like, oh wow, the space is becoming camp. Like, it was more creating the camp space, I think, back then, where now it's more maintaining it, right? So I think that would have been something that would have been really cool to experience.
Yeah, it's been very eye-opening to understand that the clearing, or the bowl, as you referred to it, was certainly full of trees and brush at one point, and it wasn't always like that. Kind of funny and ignorant of me to have not realized that, but funny now. And you're right. The tools that we rely on this day and age were almost certainly not available, or in a much more primitive form at that time. But with that work and numbers, especially just cutting that stuff down and throwing it right in the fire pit, that saves a lot of time, compared to what we were doing this last weekend, for example.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't even imagine this. You had 40 guys just going over just clearing trees. I mean, instead of just like 3.
Yeah, my work group was 4 people.
Yeah.
So they had, 20 times that clearing shrubs. So I got a lot done. There are a couple people that Ted shouts out here. Lyle Simso, Chairman C. Hill. I'm not sure if this is a typo, folks. It's the letter C and then the letter E, Hill. And I worked to obtain approval from the diocese and local government to use logs from the Okema forest to build the log buildings. Approval was given in early 1985. So those log cabins, 4 and 5, 6 and 7, and multi-purpose, I believe is what we're talking about right now. First approval given in 1985. That is 40 years ago. Pretty cool. Early in the 1980s, The board of directors were replacing the old green sleeping cabins. The frame sleeper was first built. So, two things here: the old green sleeping cabins, the remains of those can be found behind cabin 7 and multipurpose and out the parking lot towards the ball diamond, kind of the back walkway. Please do not enter for your own safety. Thing number 2, the frame sleeper was first built. Is the frame sleeper another way of him saying the log cabin? I don't know. What do you think?
I didn't fully understand that statement when you wrote it. I was actually going to ask you. So, you got any ideas, Landon, about what that might be?
I was wondering if the frame sleeper meant just like a framed house. Like, would that be like the cabin 1, 2, and 3 there? The one was
Oh, well, listeners, if you have any ideas on that, I like Lumpy's approach on that one. Moving on, Lyle Simpson and I and a few others were promoting the idea of log cabins. We felt that the materials were standing in the bush waiting to be used, and some were falling down, and as we thought, wasted. I like that. I just think that line is cool. Early in 1985, approval was received, and the first logs were cut in April. On the May long weekend, we had quite a large work crew in camp. Logs were cut and hauled. 2 big crews peeled logs on the ball diamond. This was done by splitting the bark along the length of the log with an axe and peeling it off with tire irons and car springs. The bark came off in one piece, many being 36 to 40 inches wide and 40 to 50 feet long. It was hard work. My log says that the last log, so I think he's referring to like a book where he was logging this information, says that the last log, which had been freshly cut, was 20 inches at the butt and 39 feet long. It was peeled by 4 of us in 20 minutes. These guys, I mean, hats off. The amount of work that went into this stuff, this one kind of is eye-opening, like, oh my goodness. The peeling and stuff, you got to be kidding me. That would suck.
Which is kind of interesting looking at it because, I mean, I'm not great with measurements. Like you said, 20 inches butt and 39 feet long, which is huge. And that it took 4 of them 20 minutes. And I imagine they knew what they were doing. Like they had been doing this for probably past work weekends. So the fact that you had 4 guys who had the reps in, who knew what they were doing, and it still took 20 minutes for one of these logs is pretty insane. Just how large and how big of a job it actually was. Because I mean, if you had 4 guys and they didn't know what they were doing, like I assume that first log probably would have took forever to actually figure out, hey, how are we peeling this? Are we doing it right? Is it the most efficient?
Lumpy, anything out there?
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at like again, I'm no log peeler. I don't build log houses, but like I'm pretty sure there's like a tool designed for like peeling the bark off logs. But these guys are doing it with to their own homemade setup, and they made it work, and they did a great job. Yeah, like it's unreal how they with an axe and tire iron and car springs.
Yeah,
Really covered their way to peel these logs. It sounds like maybe that's the right way to do it. I don't know, but
very innovative and resourceful. I think they deserve a lot of credit. We stay in those cabins and don't think anything of it. Blood, sweat, and tears went into those, literally. So next time you're staying in 4 or 5, 6, 7, or playing some foosball in multipurpose, take a second to appreciate the work of Lyle and Ted and their work crew, because oh my goodness.
I feel like we almost need a DIY episode where me, you, and Landon go and find a tree with a tire iron and see just how quickly we can strip it.
That's a fantastic idea, and people would be cooking us in the comments because we know it's going to go terribly.
Instead of 20 minutes, we have to do like a 20-hour live stream because it's
That's right.
Yeah. Moving on. Later in the document near the end, he writes, during the retreat, Jack Newcomb and Lyle Simpson had arrived and put in the forms for cement for the cabin. We poured the cement after supper one evening with lots of help from the ACW. So they poured cement at an ACW retreat and the ladies attending helped them. That's just kind of funny that I hope they like volunteered to help and weren't forced to, because they're there on their own retreat and suddenly they're pouring concrete. Pretty funny if you think about it. I'm sorry. The ladies shoveled gravel and wheeled cement. Everybody wanted a hand in the building of the cabin. And after their wind-up Eucharist, the next morning, Bishop Short and the whole retreat came out and blessed the building. Beginning the second week of July, we had a time of learning to build log cabins. I don't think anyone put the knowledge to any further use than the building of the next 2 cabins. By Friday night of that week, we were up to the last round of logs, and most of the crew went home. On Saturday, we put 7 logs up on top to finish up, and Lyle took his tractor and front end loader from home. So, second week of July, they first started kind of getting stuff cooking in April, did a lot over May launch. We're about 3 months in. And just a reminder to folks, this is volunteer time. People were coming up when they could to make it happen. Moving on, from that time, we had several more spells of work. Gerald Giles was the camp maintenance man, and he said he always knew when hot weather was coming. When we came back to work on the cabin, there were many days when the thermometer stood over 90 degrees, plus 35 in modern terms. That's a hot day. One night at the end of July, Lyle Simpson, Eber Hodgins, and Gerald Giles started off with a 60-foot log on Lyle's log hauler. The back wheels were about 50 feet behind the truck, and when going over some hills, they were lifted off the ground and they got stuck. They got back home after dark. So Ted just sneaking in a little laugh at his buddies, Lyle, Eber, and Gerald, getting stuck with a 60-footer, trying to make it work. One Saturday afternoon, it was very hot, about 96 degrees. Everyone had gone home except Bishop-elect Tom Morgan, who was shingling on the roof, and I worked down below cutting out a doorway. The gasoline boiled in the chainsaw. Thankfully, Lillian came along and took Tom home about 4 o'clock, and we were able to quit for the day. Holy. Remember when I said blood, sweat, and tears? So just reiterating that with this last passage.
The gasoline boiling in the chainsaw, hey? Insane. Like the metal on the chainsaw, not to mention roofing in that. Like Bishop Tom Morgan, who is shingling. Like, Landon, you know how hot it can get shingling.
Yeah.
Like,
And,
have you ever been up top on 35-degree days?
Oh yeah, it's not nice. And also they're doing it like, I'm assuming they don't have a nail gun. They're doing it with hammer and nail. Like they're doing it all. It's old school.
Very old school.
Yeah, and like also that chainsaw. If you've seen an old chainsaw, those things are heavy and they're hot, and you're down there just terrible.
Shout out Tom Morgan. I'm laughing because I just haven't appreciated these cabins more than I have after reading this. Like, oh my goodness. We're almost done, folks, I promise. At the end of August, with the outside of the building finished, Brian Evans came looking for a job. He was given a paint sprayer and a gallon of Javex and told to spray the logs. The logs had been peeled green with the sap up and had mildewed and looked an awful sight. I didn't think Brian thought much of the job, but in 5 minutes he was back and called us all out to look. The logs had turned nicely white, a lovely sight, almost like a poem. It wasn't until October that Jack Newcomb, Lyle Simpson, and I got back to the camp to put the partition in to make the 2 rooms. So we're talking from April to October, finally starting to wrap up. I left before supper on Saturday. I was to say morning prayer at our church on Sunday, as we were between priests at the time. Jack later told me that they worked until 9:30, and he slept until 8:30 the next morning. Lyle was up sawing boards when he wakened. They finished up the cabin and left for home at noon. The camp was closed for the winter. 1985, the story from Ted Morton. Pretty awesome. Eye-opening. I look forward to hearing more about the building of the cabins in the future and their impact on the camp. But a firsthand, somebody who was there, somebody who planned it out, someone who got the approval, likely helped fundraise, getting all his friends and other volunteers out to help. So, Ted Morton, thank you. Guys, any last word on that one?
No, I think you said it right, Jesse. It's really easy to take for granted a lot of the things that Camp Okema does have. And I know specifically, like you said, those cabins are just so unique and so special. Being at a lot of other camps, they don't really have that, right? I know a lot of other camps, they kind of go for quick builds and they have almost dormitory style. But man, those log cabins, I think, add so much to not only the aesthetic of camp, but just to how special of a place it is and the memories that happen in all those cabins. Just amazing.
Absolutely.
Like, you always kind of, well, you always assume that, like, obviously it's not easy work to build one of those, but like to actually get the insight to see how grueling it was. Like, I like to get that glimpse of like what it was like before them too, like what the other buildings were. It's kind of, I don't know, it changes your perspective. It's nice.
Couldn't agree more. Get ready for an unforgettable summer at Camp Okema. June 6th to 8th, the Women's Retreat. June 20th to 22nd, the Men's Retreat. July 5th, Open House and New Color Run. July 6th to 11th, Cabin Leader Training, which is ages 14 plus, led by Marilyn Whalen and Brody Albers. July 13th to 18th, Junior Teen, ages 13 to 15, led by Chantel Whalen and Rory Logan. July 20th to 25th, Junior, ages 10 to 12, led by Crystal and Chris Strom. July 20th to 25th, the Youth Canoe Camp, ages 13 to 18, led by Brody and Sarah Albers. July 27th to 30th, Small Fry, ages 7 to 9, led by Ivy Garneau and Katrina Whalen. August 2nd to 5th, Family Camp, all ages are welcome, led by Deanna Lafreniere, Victoria Marshall, and Alex Cameron. August 8th to 12th, the new Adult Canoe Camp, ages 18 plus, led by Brody and Sarah Albers. August 10th to 16th, Teen Camp, grades 9 to 12, led by Sam Lafreniere and Cassidy McMudd. And ending off the season, September 12th to 14th, the Young Adults Retreat, ages 18 plus, led by Caleb Schulz and Jesse Holmes. For more details and how to get involved, visit our website at campokema.com and follow us at facebook.com/Camp Okema and on Instagram at Camp Okema. Guys, welcome back. Thank you to all the listeners who hopefully enjoyed the story from the late Ted Morton. But we have another story. Caleb, please enlighten us.
Yeah, this is an interesting one that I wanted to share with you, Jesse and Landon, and with all the listeners. But kind of to just set the stage, last night, me and Marin were having supper with her parents, Bronwyn and Daryl. And we were upstairs and we were kind of talking about work weekend, where we were at. Then we kind of just got talking about some of the different buildings around camp. We got talking about the water treatment shed, different things like that. Fundraisers, you know, everything that goes along with talking about Camp Okema. And Daryl brought up the story about how the tractor shed was actually made through donations. And we were like, okay, like that's pretty cool. And then he went on to say, yeah, there was this bishop back in the early 2000s who ended up driving his tractor across the Diocese of Saskatoon as a fundraiser. And he would stop at different towns and he ended up raising about $20,000. And we were like, what? Like, we had never heard about this before. We hadn't heard anyone talk about this before. And Bronwyn was able to be like, oh yeah, like I totally remember that. If you did some Googling, you could probably find an article about it. So me and Marin did just that right after supper. And we were able to find an article that was posted in the Anglican Journal on September 1st, 2005, and it was titled Bishop Andrews Hits the Road. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to read this full article. It's not that long. And this essentially led me on a massive rabbit trail that I almost didn't get out of. But as I read through the article, I'm hopefully going to stop, get your opinions, and round out some things that I found out about it. So once again, this was posted September 1st, 2005, and was titled Bishop Andrews Hits the Road. Bishop Rodney Andrews of the Diocese of Saskatoon spent 14 days in June of 2005 driving an antique tractor across his diocese to celebrate Saskatchewan's 100th birthday and to raise funds for church causes. The trek, which covered 1,500 kilometers and included 30 events attended by over 1,000 people, raised more than $42,000. Proceeds will go to AIDS Africa, Camp Okema, and flood relief in Saskatoon's companion diocese of Guyana, which is a country in South America, I found out. So I'm just going to pause there for a second. 1,500 kilometers, $42,000, 1,000 people attended in various towns. Have we ever had a fundraiser like that before?
This is unbelievable work by Bishop Rodney Andrews. I have a lot to say. Lumpy, before I go off, maybe you should go first.
Yeah, it's unreal. And it's like, that's a lot of money to make. And then, like, the work to go into that, like, that's time consuming. That's a lot of travel. I'll let you go, Jesse, because I don't really know what to say about that. It's unreal.
If I may, this is a tour. He went on tour. I've been on tour, and I will say that this is crazy. It's just so crazy. Thing number one, antique tractor. Was it the tractor that's at Camp Okema right now?
That is hard to say. Later on, we're going to find out it was a 1952 John Deere model. So this happened in 2005, which means that tractor was essentially 53 years old at the time of him driving it.
Okay, so not that tractor. Okay, that answers that. Thing number two, 1,500K. That's a lot. Over 14 days. Is it 1,500K?
Yeah, 1,500K. And later on, we will get into some of the stops he made. And like I said, that rabbit trail, I'll get into some further calculations that I found out.
Yeah. 108 kilometers a day on average riding in that thing. That's a lot. 30 events. So that's like 2 shows a day attended by over 1,000 people. That's like 33 people per event. So roughly like 66 people a day. All of that to say, raised more than 42 G's. Listen, I went on tour. We ain't never even sniffed a G, let alone 42 of them. Nothing but respect to Bishop Rodney Andrews. Just crazy work. The fact that Camp Okema gets a shout in this article is hilarious and so awesome.
It's insane. And actually, the Anglican Journal later posted an article in 2010. And I won't get into it, but it talked about Bishop Rodney Andrews becoming a pilot. But later in that article, it mentions this previous article. And once again, it says, finally, there was an Anglican children's church camp north of Prince Albert. It needed a water system. So assuming that those donations went towards the water system, and it was rumored that 20,000 went to Camp Okema, which means Camp Okema did actually get the majority of that, with it being like a 20-10 split with those other causes. So just unbelievable, like the impact for everyone. Insane. But yeah, to get a little bit more in detail, a parishioner in Evesham said the tractor trek was the best thing to happen to this parish. They showed they cared enough to come, which I think is a pretty profound statement. The bishop drove a 1952 John Deere model. Exhaust fumes were a problem and repairs were required en route, but John Deere dealerships lent a helping hand. So the fact that the John Deere dealerships within Saskatchewan were on board with this and knew about it. And we're like, yeah, we will provide you with the repairs for your antique tractor. That's amazing. Like, that's insane.
Like, dude, these dealers just have these parts for this tractor that's 50 plus years old, and they're like, finally, we
Yeah.
can get these out of our warehouse.
I was gonna
And
say
give-
like you talk to any farmers, like it's impossible to get parts for vehicles that are like 2 years old. This guy's driving around this 50-year-old tractor, like, oh yeah, we got parts for you. Don't worry.
Like a 1952 tractor, like you could do it with a modern one and it would totally be fine. Like no one would have batted an eye, but very cool that he picked that make and model. Really cool.
Yeah, I guess just like the novelty of it all was maybe part of it, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
probably.
he owned this, or I don't know.
Yeah, probably in the spirit of like Saskatchewan's 100th birthday, he was probably like, hey, I want to pick something more antique. Anyways, this last paragraph of the article, I'm really excited to tell you and to hear your opinions. So the towns en route welcome Bishop Andrews in various ways. Battleford roasted a 300-pound pig, while Delisle served coffee in an antique shop. Music was the highlight in Endeavour, with two original celebrating the trek, two original songs celebrating this journey. There were parades down the main streets of Unity and Radisson, while a young girl rode a mile on her unicycle in Borden, and several members of the diocese joined the trek on their bicycles. I would love it if you, Jesse, and Landon unpack this. How do you feel about this? What stood out to you the most? Landon.
Obviously the 300-pound pig in Battleford. That's a
Hey,
clear one.
just to jump on that, Landon, because that stood out to me too. So I did some research, and it turns out the average mature pig weight comes in at about 275 pounds. So this was a larger pig, but 300 pounds. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, I've been to Battleford a lot. They don't seem like the type to celebrate a lot of things. This guy come through on his 52 tractor. So like, this deserves a pig roast. I love that. And then a little girl went a kilometer on her tricycle following this guy. Or
Unicycle.
unicycle.
Yeah,
It's completely different.
even more odd. Yeah, less wheels, like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Like Battleford roasting the 300. If we're power ranking these things, that's easy number one. It is just so funny. The fact that it gets logged as a 300-pounder is also so funny. If we can ever get an image from this, I would be so thankful. Delisle served coffee in an antique shop, probably low on the power ranking. Music was a highlight in Endeavour with two original songs, not one, but two. Two. Anybody, please Spotify link me to these songs, LOL. And probably on YouTube. Probably not. Parades in the main streets of Unity. Shout out Keith, Shell, and Radisson. While a young girl rode a mile on her unicycle in Borden.
I think we do have quite a few, or like Okema people from Borden, so actually they could maybe provide a little bit more insight.
Yeah, there are
into
Okema
this.
people in Borden. Living Books is in Borden, ran by the Whitbread family. Jeez. I hope to talk to Whitbreads on this podcast, so we might actually get a bit of info on that. Several members joined the trek on their bicycles. Kind of try hard. Like, I mean, homies in the tractor, like, we get it. You want to, like, maybe just sit this one out. It's not about you,
Yeah, the absolute scenes that are happening through these towns. So just a quick wrap up. I did a story check. Like I mentioned to Landon, I did find out that the average pig was 275 pounds, but a 300-pound pig, like you said, Jesse, that gets the weight dropped within the article is crazy. Going to the songs, I couldn't find the original songs written for the track. However, Big Green Tractor by Jason Aldean was released in 2009. There is some speculation around getting that song from the tractor trek. And I could not find the exact route, 1,500 kilometers. I tried logging those towns. but I couldn't find the exact route to make it 1,500 kilometers. But regardless, what a trek. So just a little bit more about the tractor. The John Deere A, which was the 1952 edition, is a 2-wheel drive row crop tractor from the 2-cylinder letter series. This third generation was manufactured by John Deere in Waterloo, Iowa. The John Deere A is equipped with a 5.3-liter 2-cylinder all-fuel gasoline engine and unsynchronized gear with mechanical dry disc, clutch transmission with 6 forward and 1 reverse gears. The engine produced 34 horsepower. Now, I don't know a ton about tractors, but I did. Hopefully, some of our listeners do, and they can write in to see if this is a legitimate, good tractor. I mean, it is an antique one, but I thought those stats were really interesting.
I like that. Dan McMahon, if you're listening, hit us up about this John Deere. You're going to be our official farm. Or Bryson Smith. If either of you cats are listening, we'd love to hear from you. Caleb, this story is awesome. Shout out Marin, Bronwyn, Daryl, yourself. I love everything about this. It's so funny. It's so cool. One thing that did cross my mind that's actually not a joke is I do remember being at a camp where they were having serious water issues and like a big hole was dug up and a tank was dug out kind of like between the wall and the ramp to the ladies' washroom on the side of the ramp towards the lake. And it would have been like in this time frame. Geez, question for Steve Mitchell when we do eventually talk to him. Did the money involved in this in any way support the fixing of that? Just spitballing on maybe where some of that money went.
Yeah, absolutely crazy story. And then just a quick wrap up, kind of to go back to Landon's point. So the article mentioned 1,500 kilometers in 14 days. So I wanted to see exactly how many hours driving, what that would have looked like. So I needed to find out first 1952 John Deere tractor. I couldn't find out a top speed on it. But after doing a deep dive, I found a John Deere tractor discussion forum from 2012. Okay.
Wow.
Now, on one of the threads, FFD Fireman 18 started the question, John Deere A top speed. So I went through that thread, and after sifting through responses from Mean Green, Larry Anderson, Big Board G, and Buspog Papa,
Shout out all of those guys.
Name of PBB posted, I know my buddy's 52A will do 13 miles per hour on 36 rears. So 13 miles an hour transfers to 21 kilometers per hour. So if you divide 1,500 kilometers by 21, that means that Bishop Andrew was driving for 71 and a half hours total. Now, if you break that down over the days, that means he was driving on average, if he's driving 7 days a week, 5 hours a day. And like you said, Jesse, let's not forget the 30 events, averaging 2 events a day and 5 hours of driving, eating thousands of people. How did he do it? A crazy story.
Caleb, shout out to you for all that work, for real. Thank you to all those anonymous posters and their usernames. I don't remember them offhand, but shout out and thank you. I hope you hear about this one day. And Bishop Rodney Andrews, my goodness, man, you did it. You just put the camp on your back and you said, hold on, I'm getting in my John Deere and we're going for a ride. And we're going to be fundraising. Crazy story.
I hope it was all good weather too, because like if it was pouring out there one of those days, like there's no cab on that thing.
And middle of June could be very hot as well as the flip side. Like,
yeah.
Not to mention some of those roads. Like I assume single lane highways going between some of
It
those.
would have been single lane in that yeah.
Like crazy.
Yeah, if you Google one of these machines, it's as like typical of a John Deere as you think it would be. Yeah, no radio. So we're talking no podcasts, no music, no protection from the sun. 42 large, guys. That's just, that's serious paper. If it's all right with you guys, Caleb, Lumpy, I would like to direct your attention to another piece of literature containing Camp Okema information. And that is from the Anglican History, Anglicanhistory.org. stumbled upon this document that mentions Camp Okema. The document is titled Project Canterbury. Folks, links to this, links to Caleb's article, will be included in the episode description. Project Canterbury, a historical sketch of the Diocese of Saskatchewan of the Anglican Church of Canada by W. F. Payton, Archdeacon, Prince Albert, the Anglican Diocese of Saskatchewan, 1974. 51 years ago. 51 years ago. W.F. Payton. I couldn't, Google search didn't help me out here. Not sure if anybody can help me out with that. It's a large doc. If you use a computer, Control F is your friend here. Type in the word Okema. There is one paragraph in this whole thing that I find interesting. And I quote, linked with the necessity of work among the laymen in the bishop's message to the 1933 synod, tell me how to pronounce that word in the comments, please, has been his request that consideration be given to work amongst the young people of the diocese. Again, the response to his suggestion was brought to the fore in the synod of 1935, when the canon of Okema Beach was presented for first approval. Okema Beach was a property on the shores of Emma Lake, which had been transferred to the diocese by the provincial authorities in return for the surrender of property at Fort de la Corne, which the diocese no longer required. Folks, you may remember a bit about this from episode 1. This Okema Beach property began its development at this time and became the home of young people's summer conferences and boys and girls camps, which have been held successfully from that time until the present. During the war years, the Young People's Conference was discontinued for a short time, but there is no doubt that a great deal of the church's unity developed from the gathering together of the young people of the parishes in study and devotion, as well as recreation during the conferences in the summer months. The diocese owes much to the many who have helped through the years in the organization and conduct of these camps, as well as those whose practical ability has enabled the property to be developed with more and more adequate buildings as the years have progressed. Okay, guys, initial response, anything that stands out. Lumpy, I'm going to pass it to you first.
Yeah, I guess I never really knew how old the camp was, and it's kind of cool to get that reinstatement. Like, yeah, I know we talked about how it came to be in the first one in a way, but just getting more history on it and like the gap during World War makes sense. Yeah, just neat to learn a bit more about the history and like when it got recognized and all that.
Completely agree. Caleb.
Yeah, I mean, along kind of the same lines as Landon was just talking about, just hearing that part about during the war years, the Young People's Conference was discontinued. Just kind of crazy to think about that. Yeah, that did play a major role in kind of pulling away from camp. I don't want to relate that to COVID, but COVID was another time that pulled people away from camp. And within those gap years, there is a tendency, or you very well can have a drop in the following years, just because people don't have that consistency. So it's actually amazing because the war lasted a lot longer than COVID did, arguably. So the fact that even after all that time, it mentions that the church's unity developed from the gathering together of the young people. So it's so cool that they were still able to pull together after that and still make Camp Okema what it is today, just to show that grit, determination, and just how strong those relationships were to kind of pull camp back after such a major world event.
Completely agree. Referring to the comment about the war, it just is, Landon made a comment about like the 70s weren't that long ago. The 40s feel like a super long time ago. It is amazing to think that Camp Okema has been around since before that, and that a world war affected Camp Okema. just very interesting to think about. It does say that the Young People's Conference was discontinued, but it doesn't mention that the boys and girls camps were specifically paused. I don't know how we could ever get official clarification on that, but just something that jumped out to me. Thing number 2. So the Camp Okema website says, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, I'm just saying, on the website it says in 1931, the Diocese of Saskatchewan invited clergy to retreat at Okema from 31 to 76. This document is saying that 1935 was when the canon of Okema Beach was presented for first approval. What is the canon of Okema Beach exactly? Hopefully, geez, we're talking about 90 odd years old stories and documentation. I just don't know how much more we're going to be able to find out on that, but putting that into the ether, please, if you have information, I'm sure we would love some approval on that. The Okema Beach property began its development at this time. So it says it was brought to them in 35 for first approval. It does not confirm whether it was actually approved or not. And then this Okema Beach property began its development at this time, which is what year? I don't know exactly. Probably shortly after, if we're going to be honest with ourselves. And circling back to Ted Morton, he was told in his document and put it in there that Sleepy was built in 28. This is 1935. Water is a little muddy, guys. I think we can all agree on that one. I don't want to spend much more time on this one, but that's it from this entire document. Folks, if anybody has any information and would be able to share that with us, that'd be awesome. Guys, any last thought on this one?
I just think that last sentence, I'm just going to read it there. The diocese owes much to the many who have helped through the years in the organization and conduct of these camps, as well as those whose practical ability has enabled the property to be developed with more and more adequate buildings as the years have progressed. I just think that's kind of a nice sentiment, especially coming so fresh off the work weekend, that even back when this was written in 1974, they were thanking people for all the work and just all the work that continues to go into it, like they said, with more and more adequate buildings, as we also are kind of in the midst of building a new Sleepy Hollow, which was probably unheard of back then. They probably thought it was going to be a one and done. So I just think that it's really cool that statement from this document from 51 years ago still rings true today.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, what was on camp before that. Sleepy Hollow was built in 1928, and yet we have reports that Camp Okema started in 1931, 1935. It's like things, something's going on here before, and I'd just be cool to somehow find out what that was, but I don't know how we'd get that information.
Absolutely. Last thing I'll mention, 1974 is when this is published or documented. 1976 is when the Okema Society begins. So I do find that interesting. 2 short years later, the society's rolling, and camp as we know it is coming into play.
Hey everybody, I'm back to talk to you about the lawnmower we're trying to raise money for. We're looking to get this beauty of a lawnmower, the Husqvarna 3000, not what to call it. It's not the 3000, but anyway, we're looking to get 10 grand for it to help utilize it for our space, for our grounds, to get everything looking nice. Our summer camp provides space for children, youth, and families to encounter God and His beautiful creations. We utilize our 3 fields for camp, games, gathering, archery, and building the friendships that support the lives of faith. So we're looking to raise $10,000. We're about a third of the way there. So if we can pitch in, help get that money up so we can get this lawnmower to make life a bit easier at camp. You can find the link to donate on the camp Instagram page or the camp Facebook page. Just gonna put a picture of it right here. Look at that thing, so cool. 0 turn. It's gonna be sick. Let's get some money for it any way you can.
All right, folks, we are back, and I would like to thank everyone who replied to our request for questions on our Instagram account at Camp Okema Pod. For those of you who don't use Instagram, believe it or not, we're on Facebook now too. That's right. Camp Okema Podcast. There is a Facebook page. Please stay in touch with us there. Guys, got a handful of questions. Are you ready?
So ready.
First question comes from Cassidy_McMunn. Maybe the biggest fan of the podcast to my knowledge. Cassidy McMunn. How did Caleb feel when he was the coolest dressed? Where has his style gone? For those of you viewing on YouTube, you are now seeing a picture above my finger of Caleb, and that's Brett Johnson. So her brother David was just was a guest on the last episode. Caleb, and I quote, "I think I look like Guy Fieri's son." Yeah, this drip is just insane. How did Caleb feel when he was the coolest dressed?
Man, I feel like that was because that photo was from 2011 junior team, right? So I feel like that was back in kind of my heyday of clothing choices. And I mean, the closer you look at the photo, I think there is resemblance to Guy Fieri, right? The only thing I'm missing is the convertible Camaro and going and raiding diners, drive-ins, and dives, which is still, I think, a dream job of mine. If that ever comes up, I would love to mentor under him and or get him as a guest to camp. I think would be really interesting. Maybe on the pod even as well. Guy Fieri, if you're hearing this, maybe we could get you on. I'm sure Jesse and Landon would love to pick your brain.
Oh yeah.
I mean, as
camp, trust some food.
to bring in your sauces and stuff. I mean, as far as the three of us on the podcast right now, I feel like I am being outclassed a bit as far as outfit choices go. Lanny's kind of looking like Steve Irwin's son a little bit. And I mean, Jesse with the athletics hat, the nice shades. I mean, you can't go wrong with the Okema rep. I feel like this is the best I've looked all week. So thank you for calling me out, Cass. I will try to do better.
Cassidy, thank you. Caleb, thank you. The breakfast cake, I believe, would be what we would serve to Guy
Fieri.
Yeah. Next up, M_Schulze. This is Marin. Marin, shout out. Wife of the pod. Please discuss off-site trips like mini golf or Murray Point. Marin, thank you. This is awesome. Off-site trips like mini golf. Let's start there. Lumpy, have you ever visited the mini golf? Where is that?
Sunnyside.
Thank you, Sunnyside.
No, I've never been a part of any trip to go mini golfing, and I would really like to go mini golfing. I love mini golf, and yeah, I don't know why I've never been. We got a couple complaints with some of the leadership, I guess, but yeah, it would be awesome. That's one place I want to go to is the mini golf course at Sunnyside. But it's not like I don't get to do fun stuff. But yeah, mini golf would just be so fun at camp, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's awesome. Sorry you feel left out, but also, haha, Caleb, mini golf.
I was going to say that was kind of one of the only outings that I remember other than Murray Point. And I mean, don't get me wrong about Murray Point. Like, it's fun. This may be a hot take. I don't love swimming there. I think our swim area is way better than Murray Point, but that's just my opinion. Mini golfing at Sunnyside, I distinctly remember going with the camp. We kind of split off into groups of 4 and went around the course together. Pretty much had to shoo everyone else off. Like, we pretty much had run of the course, which was awesome. And then you could actually go, we tied it in with Tuck because they had a little concession there. So they had like slushies, ice cream, different things that you could get for the trip back to camp. I also remember we went the one time across the road and they had it was almost like a small grocery store. I don't know if it's still there. They also sold ice cream over there, which was always a fun thing to do as well. But I was going to say, I attended a camp in the mid 2010s Living Waters Camp. It's between Saskatoon and PA. And I remember the one outing that they did there was they took everyone into Prince Albert and we went to the outdoor pool. Do I remember a lot of it? No. Do I think it should be implemented at camp? I mean, I think the memories would be there. I think there'd be a lot more planning, but thinking back now, I'm like, wow, that was kind of crazy to haul that many kids into PA to the outdoor water park. Like, pretty nuts.
I attended that or went to that outdoor pool in PA many times as a kid. My grandparents lived in PA for many years. This is kind of just a random thought. I always thought that outdoor pool resembled the pool in the music video for the song First Date by Blink-182. If anybody's ever seen that video, that outdoor pool in PA gives off that vibe. Big time. Yeah, the mini golf was a staple during my camper years, junior and teen camp. It was fun. We'd go and just do the thing. Was there a lot of messing around and not much actual golfing or competition? Absolutely. Pretty fun time. Murray Point. Caleb, you mentioned that the beach at Murray Point fails in comparison to Okema Beach. I could not agree more. Murray Point, step it up. That's all I got to say. Okema Beach is it's so far superior. It's not even funny. But I do like the trip. I like the canoe trip, like the distance. It's good. I've done the paddle many times. I've played the volleyball. I've played the football, played the soccer, all the games that we'd get together. We'd have, wiener roast in one of those like outside huts. What's the word I'm looking for? Canteens, if you've been out there. Thank you. If you know, guys, Murray Point, anything else to add there? I know we've all been, and we've been together.
Yeah, no, Murray Point's, I love a good time at Murray Point. Yeah, wiener roast, volleyball. Yeah, it's fun there. I just really want to go mini golfing.
Okay, Cassidy, Sam, jot this down. I don't know. What am I saying? They probably already have the camp plan. Offsite trips, couple others to add. The horseback riding, offsite. There was a camp family nearby. Emma, Christopher, I don't remember their names. Went a few times as a camper in the 2000s where they would haul us over there, and this couple would have their boat and tube out and take kids for rides and feed us all afternoon. Somebody listening definitely knows who I'm talking about and has names. Please comment or send us a message and we'll show them love next time we're out there. Did that a few times. I've heard stories about a guys' night that ended up at the 7-Eleven in Prince Albert. Not really sure. Yeah. Guys, kind of a weird one. Anything else come to mind?
No, that's all that came to mind for me. Sounds like, I don't know if that was more popular in the 90s, like with Maryland, story about them all going through Tuck, like denoting itself. But no, yeah, that's all that came to mind.
Okay, moving on. Pastor Dave, 18. This is David Johnson, who we just had on last episode. Thanks for sending us a question, Dave. He asks, what camp, event, meal, or tradition do you wish you could bring into your everyday life? Let's go event or meal specifically. What camp, event, or meal do you wish you could bring into your everyday life? Caleb, you first.
Yeah, actually, the first one that came to mind was actually swim time. And I fully realized that's something that I easily could do. I could just get a membership to the Shaw Center. You go to any outdoor pool. Just a little bit different when you're not with all your friends, the people you see every week. Like, I don't mind making friends, but I don't think I'm in the friend market when I go to the public pool. I do enjoy swimming. I don't do it enough, but that was the first thing that came to mind. Kind of tied into that would be Tuck. I mean, I know I can just go to the Circle K and I do that a lot of the time, get my energy drinks and Doritos, but it's nice when it's planned. I know I get a sweet little treat every day. And then lastly was campfire. We don't have a fire pit where I'm at right now. Well, actually we do. We should do more fires, but that's just something that I enjoy as well. It's just a nice like cap at the end of the day, right? Just a nice wind down and just really enjoying outside. I know I was only supposed to say one, but those are three: swimming, Tuck, campfire.
Lumpy.
I was going to say shower.
That's pretty.
Wow. That was
stand off.
excellent. That was excellent.
Done. Wrap it up.
Kevin Van, I don't know. I'm gonna go morning yoga. I like when I do morning yoga. It's something I should do in the morning. Unfortunately, I like to sleep until 15 minutes before I have to go to work, and then I do that instead. But doing morning yoga at camp is such a nice, different, and better way to start your morning. Meal, I don't know. I could choose any meal and I'd be happy with it. I like a good taco night. I want to do taco nights more often. Oh yeah, get a good taco night in. That'd be awesome. And tradition, I honestly want to say the elbows on the table rule, because since going to camp, I don't put my elbows on the table anymore. I've learned not to do that. But whenever I see someone with their elbows on the table, I just want to call them out. And I wish I could do that.
I mean, you could, like, next time you're at BP's or maybe a sit down, you could try get it going.
This,
They might participate in that.
who knows?
Or no.
I like that. Dave, once again, thank you for asking. Geez, I think like for meal, like pizza night comes to mind for me. Event? He asked event, right? I like campfire too. When we have time to just visit with everyone and really hang out, I like that. Some of my fondest camp memories it's like around like hot cocoa in the evening and people are just like visiting and chilling. I just love that. I don't know. Maybe I'm like being weird about it, but I just think that's one of my most fun things. Like I look forward to that time every day. So that's my answer. Moving on. That one blonde guy, 06, Reese, thank you again. Coming back with another question. So he asked a similar one to Dave, and he said favorite Okema tradition. So we heard from Lumpy already. Caleb, a tradition that stands out for you?
I think one that sticks out to me the most is actually when we're lining up to go in for a meal and we actually choose a prayer to sing before going in. I know some people might not like that the most. And I know beginning of the week, it can kind of be awkward when you don't know people. Maybe you don't know the songs, but there's just something really heartwarming and really nice about everyone just belting out Johnny Appleseed. I just really like that one. And I think that, I mean, if it was a tradition to take back home, I think that would be quite funny to do that before every single meal I eat. But it's just something about the camp community and just all being there together and just sharing in that. So I would say the prayers before the meal, any of the songs, I just really enjoy doing that with everyone.
Absolutely. That's awesome. For me, I got a couple that come to mind. The certificate signing on the last night. It's just different. You had to be there. Like once you've done a few of those, especially at teen, there's just something about it. I don't envy the leaders who find themselves signing 40 plus documents or certificates, but a small price to pay for a enormous reward. And being able to read those on my way home or once I'm home fills my heart with joy. And I've been moved by many comments campers and staff have left me over the years. One of my favorite Okema traditions that Caleb and I got to act on this last weekend was stopping at the 7-Eleven in PA on our trip home. It was just a lot of fun. I've made it a bit of a tradition to stop at the Burger King in Prince Albert to and from camp over the last, basically since the pandemic year. And this was the first trip I didn't do that in 4 calendar years or 5 calendar years or something like that. So I'm sorry, Burger King. I will be back in August. I promise. This is from AK Stevens Holmes. This is my mom, Andrea. So mom, thank you for listening and commenting. She writes, first time at camp when you wore the same thing every day and then heart emoji. So getting burned by my mom wasn't on my bingo card for this episode, but here we are. The first camp I went to, I wore the same clothes for every minute of the week. And I don't think I bathed. I thought I did at least once, but my mom claims that the smell I gave off once I got in the vehicle was undeniable. So, sure, yeah. share that story. And thank you, Mom, for bringing that to light. And guys, I hope you enjoyed that one. Moving on. Cassidy McMahon, second question. We're definitely going to answer it. Craziest thing that's happened during night game. Maybe this has been asked. Craziest thing that's happened during the night game. Anything jumping out at you guys?
Oh, just getting lost in the woods for like a few minutes. I don't know. Nothing too crazy. I don't.
Yeah, like there's not one specific instance that sticks out. Like I remember either being told or having to tell kids like that you couldn't go in the lake. And I think that just being crazy in itself that everyone has such competitiveness towards the night game that they're willing to do anything, including sneaking around back and going through the lake just to get the better odds of winning. So it's not per se a moment, but just the fact, I think after the camp fact being like, wow, that's actually crazy that we have to tell people not to do it because they'll do it, which is pretty cool, but also pretty wild in itself.
Oh, absolutely. Just a fun story, I guess. A teen, it'd be 3 years ago now. We had a gentleman named Derek up to speak to the campers, and he was really into photography. And we went out to the ball diamond in lieu of a night game and took pictures and looked at the constellations and the stars and got to do that. And that was kind of a unique one. I hadn't heard of us doing something like that before. So I wouldn't necessarily say that's crazy, but that's a different one. Cass, good question. I'm sorry I don't have like a shock value story for you. Moving on, we have 2 questions left. They are from Alan James McKee, also known as AJ. Who will win the next Okamania? I mean, like, are we even allowed to answer that?
Was
Are
he
we just
being
gonna speculate?
scripted or something? Like,
Yeah, that is definitely a real thing.
I think that's a bit of like kayfabe, isn't it? Like talking about the behind the scenes of what goes on. But yeah, that's a hard one.
and like, like Shrek won it last year. Like, how are we supposed to predict who's gonna win?
Well, I think if we are going to predict, well, if Shrek has the belt, like we know we're going to far, far away for the next Okamania. Like they kind of have to host. I wouldn't be shocked if we had some more people from his stomping grounds, like more Farquaad. I could see him maybe doing a singles match or it being a triple threat with Prince Charming, kind of like an Extreme Rules, anything goes, maybe a flaming table match. I mean, if they're hosting it out there, pretty much anything can go. They have such an all-star, I think, cast out there that they could include a lot of those people who have maybe been retired for years. I think we would be seeing some of those Hall of Famers coming back.
Yeah. Really tough. Like I can only imagine Donkey, Puss in Boots, Fiona, the Gingerbread Man, like a Royal Rumble of sorts of Shrek characters. AJ will come out as himself. Cain and Abel, well, who knows? Yeah. AJ will get DDT'd in the middle of the ring by the Gingerbread Man, and Gingy will go on to fight Shrek for the belt. Anyways, last question, guys. Who will win the campaign next year? So I believe he's asking 2025. Oh, how long of an episode do we want this to be? Okay. Here's how we're going to do it to try to keep this limited. I'm going to pass it to you. You say your team name and you say why. And then we'll move on to the next guy. Because I have a feeling we'll do a campaign preview / recap episode later this year. I pretty much guarantee it. Who feels comfortable going first with their prediction and why?
I can go if you want, Lanny. Team Morton, because if they can't cash it in this year, I don't think they're going to do it for another number of years. I think they've built their team. They've built that unity. They need to cash in now while they have everyone, or else it's going to enter another rebuild.
Writing is on the wall for Team Morton. Management had 2 first overall picks, but it's an aged core. Geez, I'm breaking my own rules. Lumpy, please.
Yeah, I mean, like it's literally anyone's game. And I'm gonna stick with my. I know AJ's gonna get mad at me because I'm not gonna say Team Morton here, but I'm gonna go with Team Whitbread.
Wow.
I know. Yeah, it's anyone's game. Woodbred has some good up and comers. And yeah, it's anyone's game. You put in the effort, you can win. And I know Team Whitbread has they got a lot of hustle behind them. They're gonna work hard.
Team Whitbread, it's kind of like the St. Louis Blues in 2019. Hockey fans everywhere are going, oh, of course. For those of you that don't know, at about halfway point in that season, the Blues were last place in virtually every category, but especially the standings. And they went on an unprecedented run, which led to the franchise's first ever win. Tell me that doesn't sound like the 2023 Team Whitbread. I didn't have them winning, and they proved everybody wrong. A bit of a homer pick for Lumpy, but we'll let him have it. Speaking of homers, Team Holmes is going to repeat this year, become the second ever franchise to win back-to-back. Shout out Team Mitchell. Team Holmes, as you will see on the work weekend recap video, to my knowledge, 4, if not potentially 5 returning players. A similar situation to Morton, where after this year, the rebuild begins. I will admit that. They cashed in enormously in the draft last year and probably got the best player in the first round. And if Ashton returns with his collarbone intact, he hasn't tasted victory. He still has something to play for. Not to mention the star-studded. Oh, I could go on. Our picks are in Morton, Whitbread, and Holmes. There are people out there who are picking Team Mitchell. I have no doubt about it.
And they're
Katrin
not
is
wrong.
somewhere.
They're not wrong.
There have been a couple instances of people correctly predicting the campaign winner. The one that always comes to mind for me is 2022, when Lumpy famously said, "You don't bet against Tom Brady," and then picked Team Mitchell to win. Tom Brady, of course, being Katrin Sinclair. Guys, any other thoughts on the campaign there going into 2025?
I think I'm going to save it for the campaign episode.
Yeah. I'm gonna follow my thoughts here a little bit before I make so I can make more accurate prediction and dive in deeper on what these teams are looking like.
Cool thing today, we learned a lot about Ted Morton, or at least some of Ted Morton's story. Morton, of course, one of the team names in the campaign. So some lore there for the campers and some insight on why we picked the names that we did. Anyways, a couple of quick things to go over before we wrap this episode up. The Young Adults Retreat in September, led by myself and Caleb here on the call. If you're listening, it's the weekend of the 12th to the 14th. We come up on the Friday night. That's the 12th. We go home on the 14th. We're spitballing some new ideas. I really encourage everybody to come out to that. If you're just outside of high school, like just graduated high school, unable to come to camp, but would still like to have a weekend up at the camp, this is what that's for. And it's really fun. The last couple of years, 30-ish people out there, which is huge considering the first one was like under 10. So I just want to highlight that and encourage everyone to sign up. Caleb, anything you want to add to that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I wasn't there last year, so I'm really looking forward to being there this year. And like you said, I really encourage everyone to come out. It's going to be a great time. It's going to be a great cap to the summer and the camp season. And yeah, I can't wait to see everyone out.
Awesome. And the retreats, there's 2 in June. The women's retreat is June 6th to 8th. That's just a couple weeks away. And the men's retreats is 2 weeks later, the 20th to 22nd. Registration for those can be found on the Camp Okema website. I'll be honest, I don't know who's running either of those, and I'm sorry about that. But I do know that those are a nice time. Caleb and I have been to the men's retreat a couple times. One time we went and we just mowed lawns the entire one day. It was pretty funny. But yeah, I encourage you, if you're able to, please attend and do your part to support Camp Okema and get out there. Guys, I believe we are at the end of the line here. We learned some stuff this episode. I guess I'll pass it to Caleb. Any last words?
No, not really. I mean, thank you for doing that research about the history of the camp and kind of being able to talk about episode 1, which now actually feels like a really long time ago
Yeah.
that we had to kick that off. So that was really great for that. Thank you, everyone who submitted the Instagram comments. We love having those in. We love talking about it. Always great questions there. And maybe we have a new fundraiser idea on the horizon with maybe taking this tractor on another 1,500 kilometers and seeing if we can get another 40 big ones. But my vote would be Landon to do that. I can
Yeah.
try to work on the organization of the towns and see if we can find another 300-pound pig. That's all I got.
If Landon's doing it, we're getting a 400-pound pig.
Yeah, you better find the record holder and put that baby on a spit.
It's going to need 2 spits. Holy,
Yeah.
400 pounds. Lumpy, any last words? Things to plug?
Not a whole lot. Spoke at the Good Shepherd Church a couple weeks ago on behalf of Marilyn Wayland. She wanted me there. They had a Okema service there, so I went there, spoke that. Had a lot of older people telling me I did really good, so I was happy with that. And saw a couple familiar faces there. Just keep watching the pod, keep listening to the pod, and yeah, we'll hopefully get some more fun stuff to do.
Thanks, Landon. Folks, once again, thank you so much. This has been the Camp Okema podcast, episode number 7. We have more guests lined up, including one of our most seasoned guests ever up to this point coming next episode. I'm really looking forward to that one. Couple last things. We do have a Facebook page now. I know I mentioned that already, so make sure that you click like. Follow us on YouTube, the Camp Okema podcast. Click like on the episode. It's cool if you do that. Appreciate that. Instagram at Camp Okema Pod. Like Caleb said, thank you so much for sending in your questions. If you have a camp friend who you think would like this, I encourage you to share the episodes, Instagram, Facebook, send it in an email, print off a screenshot and mail it to your buddy. I don't care. Do what you got to do to share the Camp Okema podcast. We really appreciate it. I think that's all from us. Folks, I'm Jesse. On behalf of my co-hosts, Caleb and Landon, this has been the Camp Okema podcast, and we will see you at camp.